Welcome back, 2 p.m. with the Trigger. Yes, check your watch. It's 2 p.m. Eastern time. And welcome back for more conversations and fun. As today we're concluding our month-long series, Freedom from the Fear of Public Speaking. And today, our 14th speaker of the month is coming on. 14 different speakers have spent time every day chatting throughout the month, sharing insights, secrets, and we had that week-long marathon that we had different speakers on. And we're going to wind it all down today talking about nervousness. We're going to talk about freedom from nervousness and showing nervousness. So you can be nervous. You can have little shakes and have that little rumbling in your stomach backstage. But there's a moment when you show it and it doesn't play out well with the crowd very often. So we're going to talk about that today. We had a great conversation. As always, the chat box is open. You can drop in a hello or welcome right away. Stroke TV is in the house with us. Aaron Avila is back once again. Thank you for being here. And thanks for letting us know you're there. So that's how the chat box works. That's how you let us know you're a part of the conversation. Ask questions, support the guests. And by the way, who is our guest today? Well, let me tell you. Lynda Katz Wilner is a speech and language trainer, coach, and pathologist. She is a founder and the director of the Successful Speaking, a communication consulting firm that helps individuals and teams speak, sound, look, and listen like leaders. She knows about nervousness. She knows about speaking. Lynda Katz Wilner, let's welcome her live at 2 p.m. Great to see you, Lynda.
Hi, Rich. It's great to see you.
So you've been in the speaking game for a long time. What, first of all, got you into coaching others? Why?
Well, first of all, I hated public speaking. And I entered the field as a speech and language pathologist. So I was working with people who had communication disorders. But I knew the nervousness they had because they had difficulty speaking. Anything from a stroke or somebody who might stutter or have a speech problem or have an accent. And so I was very aware of that. And I had the clinical skills to help with that. But then I moved over to working with people who are in the workforce. People who are leaders trying to improve their executive presence, people who are trying to get a job, all of these situations, and we all get nervous.
Yes, we do.
And so I started conducting master classes in public speaking, and it was a wonderful way to get no more than 5 people in a room, either physical or virtual, and talk about this and learn strategies so that they can harness that public speaking anxiety. Because whether you like it or not, everybody has it. And Rich, early in my career, somebody said to me, the day you wake up to give a speech and you're not nervous,
Yes.
That's the day you should start to worry.
Yes, because there's something about the butterflies, the incitement, the anticipation. You're delivering something of value. Mm-hmm. And you know when there's that energy of a good nervousness and there's the bad nervousness, but there's something in that you never want to lose it as a performer. Actors, directors, singers talk about that. Athletes talk about that. There's that come out of the locker room moment of like, oh crap, here we go.
and you know, I say that, Rich, because I always say to people, when the athletes are on that field and the national anthem is playing, do you think they're really saying, I'm so nervous, I may make a mistake? No. They're saying, I'm pumped, I'm ready. So they need to reframe that adrenaline rush and know that if our hands are shaking a little bit before our presentation, we need to say, I got it now. My adrenaline is rushing and I'm going to perform better. So it's all what we think about that.
And it's really how we channel it. So then adrenaline versus nervousness, you just refocus and channel it. Now, there is the side, and we'll start here, that you get up on stage, you begin to go, and you get more nervous and your face gets flushed, your hands get sweaty, your tongue gets thicker, or it feels that way. And that nervousness starts to compound. How does the crowd react normally, do you think? Do they get nervous with you? Do they freak out? Do they stop listening? How does the crowd react, and how does that trend kind of translate?
I think it depends how you deal with it. So I've gotten up years ago. I remember once presenting at a conference and I felt like my tongue could not come away from the roof of my mouth and my lips were dry. What do you do with that? Well, first of all, have water there, number one. Second of all, a little trick is you can gently bite on the sides of your tongue, and it creates more saliva in your mouth,
Did not know that.
and that will help. Make sure you're hydrated.
Yes.
And coffee and alcohol are going to dehydrate you. So that is not the way to help you. So there are certain things you can do when you prepare. But when we get up there, sometimes we are nervous. And sometimes it does show. I don't think we should apologize for it.
Okay.
I remember hearing somebody in a master class and said, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. I'm not, I know. Please excuse me. I'm so nervous. And I spoke to her afterwards and I said, this is what you need to say. I'm so excited to be here. Own that. And with that excitement, you may come across nervous, but you're not looking for sympathy. You're not looking for excuses. So focus on, if you need to just own it, just say, I'm so excited to get up here and talk to this group of 3,000 people. And people will have compassion and understanding if you have problems or trip over words. But don't keep focusing on it. Just move forward with it.
Well, almost anyone has some level of nervousness, but that flush, and some of us have that ability. We just have the DNA in our body. Anything shows in our face. There are people that can't lie. They can't tell a joke. That our face tells the world everything. And sometimes you just have to own the fact that that's part of who you are and be okay with it.
Yes.
And take a breath, blow it out, relax, have a joke with it. But nervousness is not the killer. But what I find more and more is you just got that phone call. Your company has asked you to speak next week. I find more people more nervous about the anticipation, the gap between being asked and stepping on stage. Can you walk us through that? What is that all about? Why do we get nervous and freak out just getting asked to speak?
And you left something out, not sleeping each night leading up to that, or rehearsing all through the nights. Now, there are a lot of things that lead up to it. And when I look at public speaking anxiety, I really look at 3 different areas, Rich. One is, what do you do beforehand? And that's what you're asking me now.
Yeah.
2 is, what's cognitively going on in your brain, which is happening before, because you just asked me. And 3 is, what do you do because there's a physical reaction to it? How do you control it? That comes later, because that's when you're on that stage. Yeah. So in answer to what you said, the first thing is, when they ask you to do it, you may be nervous. The first thing is, you said yes already. So the first thing is, you have to prepare. Make sure you prepare. Make sure you practice. But don't memorize your whole speech, because you will never come across authentic if you do that. And if you forget a line, you will crash and burn. So be very familiar with your information. That's what you can do beforehand. But in your brain, start to think about, why did they ask me to speak? Why me?
Why me?
And remind yourself, it's because I know about this topic. It's because I've worked with this company for 15 years. It's because, I am most knowledgeable and I wrote the report, or whatever it might be. You need to talk to yourself and remind yourself why you are the one speaking. And then if you're still so nervous, put that down on cards and read them every day. Affirmation cards. I know what I'm talking about. I'm very experienced in this topic. Focus on what you can do, not why you shouldn't be up there and how you're worried about what will go wrong.
Well, and I'm sure many people have had that moment where they said yes. Oh, it's an honor to do this. Thank you very much for calling me. They hang up the phone. They look at their spouse or their child and they go, what the heck did I just do? And you go from here to here in 30 seconds.
Yes.
And that freaks people out, because they like the recognition. They like the pat on the back. In the same moment, they're like, now I have a week to figure this out.
And that's when I said, Rich, talk yourself through it. Use the cognitive part of, what am I thinking? Well, I do know I know this information. If I take the time to prepare, I can put it together. Nobody in that audience, hopefully, is going to look for me to fail. There are people I respect and they respect me. You just find all the positive things you can say to help you prepare for this. Because
Aaron likes the idea. Oh, sorry. Aaron likes the idea of preparing. And I think there's a point of preparation and a point of over preparing.
Mhm.
I found back in my early days when I over prepared, I got more nervous.
Mhm.
I drilled and practiced to the point where now I'm going to slip from the word. I'm going to miss the story. I'm going to talk out it. So I found there's a sweet spot of preparing and also letting it come out of me and letting it ooze out of me. As I tell people, it naturally flows out. There's a different. Do you find that true, that there's a over prep that makes us more nervous?
Absolutely. And it's not just the over prep, it's that feeling that it has to be perfect
Yes.
and you want to memorize it. And I've been there early in my career where they asked me to speak and I have all my notes and I don't want to forget anything, but I know I don't come across as well if I do it that way. When I'd rather you want to know your introduction because
Yeah.
that's when you're most nervous. So that you could memorize if you can say it naturally, even though it's memorized. But then go with the flow. People will appreciate it more if you're coming across human than as a robot that's recorded the talk. The days are gone of giving presentations, right? It's more conversation.
Aaron wants us to go further in the over preparing. Thank you, Aaron, for that, because it is an area that I know a lot of performers work with. And, I was just at a ball game the other night and they sang the national anthem. That's one thing that people blow. They've worked on it, they memorize it, and they still get up there. They invert words and change lines or skip entire phrases. And they walk away going, oh, that was horrible. There isn't about over preparing that our mind reacts to. What else can we do to help them think about the over preparing? Is there a sweet spot to help them fall into where they know they're accomplished, but not drowning in it?
Mhm. It really depends on what type of presentation or talk you're giving. I work with priests who are giving sermons.
Yeah.
And some of them, because they're non-native speakers of English, they write it all out. Well, you can over-prepare that, but you have to learn how to read your notes so they don't sound like you're reading your notes.
Yes.
Another idea is just have bullet points available. And then you're not missing your key points, but you sound like you're having a conversation. It's much more natural. And so in your preparation, you might write out your speech. You might practice your speech, but then ditch the speech and have talking points. And then you sound more natural and you can always glance down at your notes. Nobody's going to penalize you for that.
Well, and that's pretty much what I've done over the years. I do write down my intro and outro because usually when you're first coming on, the adrenaline launch, you've got photos going on, doors slamming, you've got music stopping. There's always confusion going on when you first start. So even though I do know my opening, I always have it because my brain will go burp, and I want to grab it. The ending the same way. I want to make sure I land the plane right. And some people will know you're winding down. They're already getting up their chairs. They're going to the back of the room. They're taking a potty break, whatever. So those two I do have in case I need them. The rest is mostly bullet points. But if I need to, I will go over there and say, by the way, and I will hold the card before everyone leaves. And again, own that moment.
Right.
Know there's a distraction, re-grab their attention, and make sure that closing or that opening is really important.
I'm so glad you said that because so many people are worried they'll forget something. And there's nothing wrong with saying, there was one more thing I wanted to tell you and own that. And you sound confident. Don't worry about that. I do a lot of pitch coaching. And there was one time where when I do the prep class for the cohort, I say, do not memorize this pitch. Even though it's only a 4 or 5 minute pitch, do not memorize it. And one person didn't listen to me. And he got up there and gave that pitch. And he had maybe one more slide to go. And he forgot where he was. And nobody knew what to do.
Nobody.
So we applaud. What do we do? And I just wanted him to look over his shoulder at the slide, but he was a deer in headlights. And that's what happens when you memorize.
And there is something in this communication world of props work. There's something about having that card that you hold it up, and it's almost like the school teacher saying, now children, wait. There is something about reinforcing that, and people it's got to be important if they're waving it, if they're owning it. Don't be afraid of doing that. It's not any lesser of a quality of a speaker. it may actually add to the value of you as a speaker.
And, I want to add to that, because some people do feel, because of the content, they need some notes.
Yeah.
And if they have the notes, there's nothing wrong with glancing at the note and talking, but they should not read their notes as they're talking.
Yes.
Glance at them, remember, trigger your memory, and then talk to the people. And they won't mind, the audience shouldn't mind the notes, because we sometimes need notes, especially as we get older. Right?
I'm never going to admit that. Not yet. I'm not ready to admit that.
Again, everybody can use notes, and it doesn't make you any less of a speaker if you speak in a way that has energy and you're acknowledging the audience, because it's not a one-way presentation.
It shouldn't be a one-way. It should not be a monologue. Right. You're right. This should be interactive in some fashion. Mm-hmm. And by the way, notes, Jan is the queen of notes here at 2 p.m. She grabs all the great nuggets, throws them in for everyone to reinforce it. It's great. We just love having it. Thank you, Jan, for doing that every day and for being part of the conversation. When it comes to nervousness, I've also found that once in a while, I do have the mood of the speech or conversation changes. I'll have to even have a chair sometimes that once in a while I'll sit to reframe my body position, to change the intimacy of the conversation. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to read from a book, often I'll pull it out and sit, because it feels like you're having a fireside chat with your kids. Sometimes that can break the nervousness just by reframing the physicality of you, because if you're standing the whole time and you're feeling it, you're going to get that dizziness, your hands are jiggling. Sometimes just sit. What other tips like that can you give?
I'm so glad you asked me that. So yes, even walking to a different part of the stage or the conference room can help. Going to the other side of the room, getting a different perspective. There are a few really good strategies I want to share with you. One I learned in high school in my public speaking class, where I was a nervous wreck before that class. I don't remember the subject I took before that, but all I was doing was rehearsing my speech in my mind when I knew I had a speech that day. And one of the things we learned, and our teacher called it curl your toes. And I've changed it a little bit to imagine you're a tree and your toes and your feet are the roots of the tree. Grab the ground by curling your toes down, and all the tension that you're feeling in your hands, in your chest, in your lungs, in your legs, in your knees, drain right out your feet into the ground. It also makes you have better posture, but the tension gets directed to your feet and not to your brain or your hands or anything else. So stand like a tree or sit with your feet grabbing the ground, and it takes away tension. And my clients have all said it works. It works. So that's what you can do in the moment.
Yes. Yeah. I love that, of digging in and grounding yourself. Mm-hmm. Jan's got a great question. She's challenged by her stroke. What do you do when you do have some of those physical disabilities, limitations? How can you break it up in a rhythm and help with people that have that, but they want to speak and they can speak and present really well?
Well, if you're talking about having to sit down, when you're sitting down, feel the chair. Feel your body against the chair. Feel your back against the chair, or maybe you have to sit forward, but be aware of your body, and that grounds you, as well as your feet curling to the ground. So just focusing on being grounding, and that keeps me from swinging and swaying and moving. That's one thing to help. Mm-hmm. As far as a stroke, that goes into so many other areas. But you mentioned something earlier, and I have to mention this.
Yeah.
This is the most important thing, and it's related to breathing. There are a few ways I talk about breathing. One is, what do you do before to calm yourself down?
Yep.
What do you do right before you start talking? And what do you do if you're in the middle of it and you feel like this train is just racing and you can't keep up with the words you're trying to say?
Oh man, yes.
So let's talk first about what you do beforehand. You're nervous, and I mean beforehand, like 5 minutes, you know you're going on, you're feeling so nervous, your heart is pounding out of your chest, you're perspiring, you don't think you can breathe, you're shaking, your voice is going to tremor, everything is in overdrive, and that's what we call adrenaline. What can you do? Okay, there are a few different breathing exercises. One is what we call box breathing or tactical breathing, and it's used in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do is you imagine a box and you inhale. Now, you don't do it with your hands, but I'll demonstrate it. You inhale for 4 counts. You hold your breath for 4 counts.
Yep.
You exhale for 4 counts. You hold your breath for 4 counts. And you do this as many times as you need to calm yourself down. So imagine if they're doing it in the military, there are reasons for that because you have to be in control. You can't panic. So that's one, Rich.
Yep.
Another one, and that's also used with panic attacks.
Oh, yes.
Focus on your breathing. Breathing will ground you. I promise you that. Another is some people even say you can do a 4-7-8 sequence where you breathe in 4 counts, hold it for 7, exhale for 8. That stops that rapid heart rate and breathing. But here's my favorite one that I learned. I actually learned when I was a graduate student working with people with voice disorders. I knew this. And then fast forward 2 years, I was in my late 20s, so it was a few years ago. But I was at a conference, and my professor, my supervisor, was at this conference speaking. And I hadn't seen him in maybe 5 years. And I hated public speaking. Remember, I was a therapist, so I helped people with therapy, but I didn't always go up on a stage. And he was the next speaker, and I didn't know that. And he gets up on the stage, and he said, "It just so happens one of my former students is here, and I'm going to have her come up on the stage." I thought I was going to die, and now I got to experience pure fear that a lot of my clients have.
Yeah.
I thought if I walked up there, people would see my heart pounding.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if I could walk up there because I had to climb over people, walk up an aisle, walk up the steps.
Yes.
I was in a panic mode, and I thought, candle breaths. This is what I used to teach people. And so what you do is you imagine you have a candle, and you don't blow it out. You let it flicker. And so you just take a breath, and you do this a few times, not rapidly because you'll pass out,
Right.
but a few times. And what you're doing is you're slowing your heart rate down. And I got up on that stage, Rich, and I did that. And I could feel that the jerkiness of my breathing subsided.
Yeah.
And I calmed myself down when I was so panic stricken. So breathing is the answer. So that you can do right before you have to speak. Another thing is you get up to speak, and most people think they have to start right away. Get up there, breathe in, breathe out, then start. You'll look more focused and you'll be more focused.
That's what I do every time. I take a dramatic pause just so I'm centered and ready to go for that very reason.
And you see, everything we're talking about is breathing. Breathing is going to help. There are other things you can do, relaxation and meditation and exercise and all of these things, and they'll help. But if you do one thing only, do the breathing. It's a surefire way to calm yourself down.
So, comment from the gallery here. Jan is saying thank you directly to you and for everything you're sharing here. And this is like a mini, again, you do masterclass, so you help people with this at very high level. It's a very real thing for accomplished speakers, for influencers. No matter how long you've been doing this, these things can come back over and over again. Lynda, I do want to make sure that we get your website in here. You can help people. You have a dynamite history, what you do. So what are they going to find when they go to your website and learn more about you?
Well, they'll see there are many ways that you can learn to speak, sound, and look like a leader. I can speak to organizations. I come to speak to organizations. I speak at conferences. I go to companies and work with teams. And it could be anything from public speaking, executive presence, accent modification. I spoke to a cohort of business owners just this week on all the things to think about when you're running a meeting, when you're speaking, when you're talking to a client. And again, it comes down to speak, sound, and look like a leader. And that is what you say, how you sound when you say it, and how you look when you say it. And then I do master classes, and I have published many books on accent modification. I published a book on mispersnickety if we're concerned that we might misspeak sometimes or pronounce things
Never happens.
And no, never, never, never. And then I have some fun products on my website, like Tee Up Your Speech. Golf is like public speaking. I play golf, and it is amazing, as many sports are, the parallels between performing well in a sport and speaking, because our head gets in the way.
Well, and also you get that one good hole, and you got to go play again.
even though 17 were not good.
Exactly. Lynda Katz Wilner, thank you for being with us here at 2 p.m. Again, we are winding down our freedom from the fear of public speaking. What a great way to wrap it up, talking about nervousness, because it affects us in so many different ways. Lynda, thanks for being here today and just for sharing those pearls of wisdom.
Sure. Just remember to breathe and be a tree.
Everyone take a deep breath as we wind down the show here today and let it out. Again, this has been great. Jan's reaffirming again. Thank you for all of that. I want to share that out again. This has been a great series, and we are going to repackage, rebundle, and we are going to put this back out again as Aaron chimes in with a big thank you and a round of applause. We're going to repackage this and share this out in the future to help more people, replay these and share these and learn how to overcome the many fears of public speaking. Public speaking is a blast. It's a great career, but it's also one of those things, as Lynda said at the beginning, we continue to learn and work on. It's never perfect, but it's always better each time. That's going to do it for today at 2 p.m. with The Trigger. Thanks for being with us all month long to be a part of the series. We'll be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. with another edition of 2 p.m. with The Trigger. And you'll have some surprises for you coming up then as well. We'll see you at 2 p.m. Eastern Time live.